Hello, my name is Tutu Popola, and I will be talking about why are you losing diverse talent in your employee life cycle. I hope you find this information useful. If you have any questions or any comments, please feel free to get in touch with me. I will be sharing my contact details as we proceed. So yes, this information is for organizations who want to advance their diversity and inclusion efforts. So maybe you've already started before and you want to make progress in terms of what you're doing. You want to do more, then this is for you. This is not a quick fix. So if what you're looking for is a solution that's very quick, hope this is probably going to disappoint you because it's not a quick fix. If I can share my screen, workout technology. I'm just going to share my screen now. Yes, so I am not sharing my screen. So like I said, this is discussing the employee life cycle and then diversity, equity, and inclusion. And also, I'll go on to talk about the role of data. What role does data play in this process? Just tell you a little bit about myself before we start. My name is Tutu Popola. I'm the lead consultant at Sleek HR. And Sleek HR specializes in HR diversity, equity, and inclusion, especially for creative agencies. I am CIPD qualified. CIPD is the body for HR professionals within the UK, and also a good member of HR Independence. I am an independent practitioner. In terms of my experience, I have worked 14 years, both in-house and with other consulting. I'm also consulting for other organizations. So I have quite broad people management experience. And I am a coffee lover, so I would not be without a cup of coffee. Okay. Now, what do we do at Sleek HR? Is the full spectrum of HR consulting services from entry to exit when an employee joins on an organization, and also diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that includes audits, planning, and implementation. So we would audit your current processes, we would drop a plan with you, and also support you in the implementation. Either that will be done by us or through your in-house HR team. Yes. Okay, so I'm just going to move on now and talk about employee life cycle and diversity, equity, and inclusion. So to start with, you're probably familiar with this data already. Recent survey by Glassdoor regarding diverse hiring states that 67% of job seekers consider workplace diversity to be important when considering employment opportunities. I reckon that this figure is probably higher, but they've probably based that on the number of people that they've surveyed. So that means today's job seeker they want to know what their potential employers are doing, and not just saying to create a diverse and inclusive workplace. As a manager, as HR, as senior management individual, you probably already know this. So diversity has gone beyond the nice to have, and it's now more about it's become an essential within organizations. Now, when we talk about a diverse and inclusive culture, a culture cannot be diverse and successful if employees outside of a dominant group do not feel included. So if you have any group of people who are dominant, that is their dominance in terms of their representation within your organization, and if there are people outside of that group who don't feel like they are included, then your diversity is not successful yet, but it can be fixed. And people hired from diverse backgrounds are more likely to remain employed in your organization if they feel that their perspective and contributions are valued by their team, by their manager, and by the organization as a whole. And an inclusive environment accepts personal differences amongst employees whilst focusing on the business mission to create customer value. Again, I don't think I'm sharing anything that you don't already know here. So what we mean by that last paragraph is that you're not looking for an organization where everybody is basically in agreement, with the same issues. They want to do things the same way. There's no room for personal differences. Where that happens, then we would not refer to that as an inclusive environment. We would say that that environment is not inclusive. And when that is the case, then that means that people outside of the dominant group within the organization will not feel included, and they will not feel like that is the place for them. Okay, I'm just sharing it as a background for those that don't already know, or as a nice reminder for the rest of us. But I'm sure it's something that you've all heard before and we're all familiar with. What is the employment life cycle? So it's basically the journey of an employee when they come into your organization, and that has been clearly defined in this graphic here. That's the attraction, recruitment, onboarding, development, retention, and separation, which is when they eventually leave. So basically, your employee's journey from entry to exit. What I'm looking to do today is to share with you how diversity and inclusion, affects each of these stages, and obviously what can be done, what are the actionable points. So yes, I hope you would find this really useful. Like I said earlier, if you have any questions, please write them down and get in touch with me at the end of this video. My contact details are at the end. So I'm going to start off with attraction. At this stage, there is a need to establish your employee brand. So this is the stage where somebody is probably looking at your website or hearing about you for the first time. What do they see? What is your brand? How would you describe your brand as an employer? What makes you different from the next employer within your industry? What you want at this stage is to send a really strong message, and you don't want to be what they call a vanilla employer. And you don't want your website to be just lots of corporate speak, so to say. So when we hear the name of your organization, what comes to mind? Or when we look on your website, or when your current employees are talking about you, how do they describe you as an employer? So you need to check whether there's visibility for diverse employees that you already have. Is there visibility for them? Is there representation at all levels across your company? There is a common theme, and hopefully, I'm hoping that this is something that is changing gradually. It's changing slowly, but change is happening. Is that sometimes we see that most of the employees at the junior level, that's where the diversity is. And as you progress to mid and senior level management, that the diversity is not there. So you want to check that your about section of your website shows who you are as an organization. There's representation there. Now, I'm mindful that you might not have that representation of diversity, and in that case, transparency is really important, to say this is where we are and this is what we are doing about it. We are not yet a diverse organization, but these are the steps that we're taking. That transparency is really important in the current climate that we're in now, so people who may be looking to work with you or join your organization would see that, and that can be very appealing. Another point to note is your diversity messaging in your employer brand communications. When you write your adverts, when you put out information, are you sending a strong message that you are welcoming of people from all backgrounds? So please be mindful of that. And there's also the use of inclusive language. And this is a big one, salary transparency. When you advertise roles, in order to attract people from, all backgrounds, from different backgrounds, salary transparency is really important. And I'm sure you've probably heard about this, where when you advertise a job, advertise the salary. If you don't advertise the actual salary, sometimes some employers might choose to advertise a range of. They might say this role is paying from 20 to 25,000. That's probably because they want to make allowance for different experience levels, and that's okay as long as you are stating what you're looking to pay for that particular role. Then that's very important at this attraction stage. And also hours flexibility as well. Do you need to advertise all your roles as full-time, 40 hours a week? Or would you want to consider things like job share, flexible hours, or some employers might retain core hours, and they might have core hours and then allow their employees to flex the remaining times of the day. So these factors that I've mentioned are really important in the attractions. And there are more, but I'm just going to limit it to these points. The next stage is recruitment, and this is all about your candidate's experience. At this stage, you want to make sure that the experience that the candidates have is smooth and is sleek. You want to consider your disabled and neurodivergent applicants, whether they need support or adjustment during your recruitment process. And diversity of your interview panel as well is really important at this stage. You may need to procure external resource to support you with this sometimes. But make sure that, for example, your panel is not all male or all white or all women. So where possible, have a good mix of people, of people within your interview panel. There is a real benefit to having different perspectives on an interview panel when making decision, and also ensuring that whoever is on the panel, they have decision making, their opinion counts, they have decision making power as such. Not to have people on the panel just for being on the interview panel, but also ensuring that their contribution is valid. If you're working with recruitment agencies, ask them about their diversity policy. Most agencies are now waking up to this and they're collecting this data. So if you have a particular group that's underrepresented within your organization, it's very valid for you to ask the recruitment agencies how they attract people from this particular group. And ask them to submit, when they're submitting CVs, that you're interested in seeing CVs from people from different range of backgrounds. That's usually quite a good way to go about it. At a recruitment stage, you would also be looking to collect data, because this data is very important. I would say it's probably the first touch point of data collection for you. So you're asking about what we call the protected characteristics of those applying: disability, ethnicity, their gender reassignments, you want to ask all those questions. Why is this really important? Is that if you have this information to hand, it really helps you to check who's applying to work with you, and also at what point are they dropping off in the process. If they're not moving on to the next stage, then you can do something about it. Also, if they are disabled or neurodiverse, you would be able to ask them about any support or adjustment they require during your recruitment process. So it's really important to collect data at this stage. I'll move on to the onboarding. Once you've made an appointment, you've sent the contract, offer has been accepted, there is the onboarding stage. This is, in terms of diversity and equity and inclusion, this onboarding stage sometimes is often overlooked, unfortunately, and it can have, really serious implications further down the line. Because there's an assumption that, somebody has accepted to come and work for your business, then they just get a contract and then you start them off. But it's really important that you onboard them properly. Having proper introductions to the rest of the team, helping them navigate their surroundings, and training them on the specific tools and processes that they would need for their work is really important. What this does is ensure that they have a good start with your organization. When they've started, they've had proper introductions, they've met people who they will be working with, they've met the stakeholders, they know who is who. There's no feeling of isolation when they started, which is just one of the reasons, actually. There's no feeling of isolation, or I've got to figure out who is who. They're starting very well. They're starting properly. And that keeps their mind at rest as well, to say, okay, I'm starting properly. I know who I need to be speaking to. Yeah, that's very important. Ask what will make them feel included at your company. Make a note of it and then take action. So there's an assumption that we should just know, or maybe one size would fit all, just treat everybody the same. Sometimes people might, you might be able to get some really good information on what would make them feel included at your company. Make a note of it and then take action. Sometimes we ask questions, but we don't necessarily take actions. But this is part of inclusion, and it's a good foundational knowledge to have for somebody who's just joining your organization, to say, what can we do to make you feel included whilst you're here? And then they will share with you. That again helps you. It gives you information to act on, as opposed to just treating everybody the same. Also, this is really critical. This onboarding stage is very critical for disabled, neurodivergent people and people who have had gender reassignments as well. This onboarding stage, because you're having that one-to-one time with them, because if, for example, somebody has a disability, at the onboarding stage, you can look at, again, the adjustments. If you remember what I said earlier at the recruitment stage about asking whether people need any adjustments, then you can really embed this at the onboarding stage, make sure that they have everything that they need. Somebody who is neurodiverse, for example, might not want to work under certain conditions, or they might find it useful to work under certain conditions, but then they will be able to share that with you in a bit more detail. Again, those who have had, gender reassignments, it's critical to, consider what they would want as well as part of their inclusion. What would make them feel included at your company? If you ask that questions and not make assumption that you know what everyone wants, because sometimes you don't know. Okay, I'm moving on to the development stage now. Make the path to growth transparent within your organization. Sometimes there's no clarity on what people need to do to get promotion. And speaking from the perspective of, people who are from ethnic minority backgrounds, for example, or those that have been minoritized because of race, sometimes there's a lot of assumptions that we can make where these groups are not progressing, through the ranks. They're not growing within the organization. They don't know. It's not clear. There's no transparency around what they need to do, what people need to do. So generally, make it clear what the path to growth is. Make it transparent within your organization. This is what you need to do to get from junior level to mid-level. So that will be discussions that will be had as part of the career development discussions. It will be had as part of the performance management. That is really crucial. And then consider the development opportunity you can offer to the most underrepresented groups within your business. Again, this brings up the question of data. Okay, if you haven't collected the data to know how people identify, then you can't really make this kind of decisions. This is why part of why data is important. So for those that are most underrepresented groups within your business, consider their potential and look at what development opportunities that they can be offered. What that does, apart from retention for them within your business, is also, it means that you have that representation across different levels. as well. So throughout, right from senior management down to the juniors. Consider accelerator programs as well. There are quite a few, depending on your industry. There are quite a few accelerator programs that you can enroll your team on that can fast track those who are high potential. Next is retention. Training managers to lead diverse team. How do you retain your diverse employees? Training managers on how to lead diverse teams. There's an assumption with managers that once somebody becomes a manager, they just automatically know how to manage. There needs to be some investments there on the part of the organization into their managers who are managing. And to not make an assumption that you're a manager, you've been doing this for 5 years, you should know. There needs to be an awareness of what unconscious bias is, but also, more importantly, how does that impact those that work with them? And that is for managers. Also, train your managers on how to identify talent that may seem different. Yeah, this is really important. So some talents may seem different. So based on how you assess talents, ensure that you're assessing talent that may seem different, but focus on the skills. So if you're looking at the skills that, that's required for a particular role, the person might not necessarily, for example, they might not be the most outspoken person on the team, but they have the right level of skill. Don't overlook people like that. Don't overlook them, because again, some of this might be as a result of, their previous experiences. They might not, necessarily want to speak up. But they have the skills, or they might not speak up because of, I don't know, it could be because of as a result of the condition, it could be as a result of previous experience, it could be a number of different things. So don't have a single way of assessing talent, is what I'm trying to convey there. Identify talents that may seem different. So train your managers on that. And the next point is, part-time employees in senior roles can be a really powerful means of retaining senior talent. Okay, so for example, working parents and those with caring responsibilities. If I give an example of gender, for women who have, majority of childcare responsibilities, they are exiting, not may, they are exiting working life organizing because of lack of flexibility, basically. There's not enough flexibility for them to work around, their children. And this is not limited to women. It could be also those who have caring responsibilities in general. It could be men who look after the children, or people who look after, maybe they have a member of their family who has a disability, so they have that responsibility. So sometimes what we find, certainly in, a lot of times I've experienced this, is that they would exit senior roles to take up those responsibilities they have outside of the company. So you can really send a strong message within the organization by making flexibility available even at senior level. Okay, so it's a powerful means of retaining senior talents. The next point I'm going to make is under retention is about stay interviews. Have check-in with your diverse employees to check that their needs have been met. And we would recommend that this happens twice a year. So just check in with them. Don't assume, and don't wait until they resign before you want to start asking questions. But check in with them as, giving opportunity to say, what can we do? Are we meeting your needs? This is really important in the current climate. And when they give you this feedback, act on them. Act on them. Maybe if you're not able to act on every single one, but make sure that they feel heard, and act on as much as you can. I would say act on them. The next stage in the employee life cycle, I would say, is exit. Having an effective offboarding is crucial for your DI efforts. If people are choosing to leave, ask them why, because that information is really crucial for you to be able to make changes where needed. Investigate their reasons for leaving. Not to say that they will always tell you, but it's still worth asking. You will be able to gather really important information there. No employee, especially those from underrepresented groups, should leave without an exit interview. We've seen cases where employees resign, they submit their resignation letters, and they are basically just get a letter saying that resignation has been accepted. That's very poor practice. If you're serious about your diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, you should be asking those questions. It's good practice to do so, and also it will give you an insight into how you can better serve underrepresented employees. So yeah, we've come to the end of the employee life cycle. I want to talk briefly about the role of data. What role does data play? The truth is, you cannot commit to tangible deliverables without correct data gathering and analysis. So it's not just about collection of data, but also analyzing it. You can't really commit to any serious diversity inclusion efforts without having data. So data is really important. There are different touch points that you can collect your data. You can add recruitment. You can, check your, promotion. When looking at your HR system, your records, whichever way you keep it, where are people placed within the organization? When you look at your succession planning, when you have your employee surveys as well, you can gather a lot of data from there. If you are not doing this based on data, if you don't know the percentage of people with, from LGBTQ plus within your company, know the percentages of people from ethnic minority. If you don't have that information, you can't really make the kind of changes that I've been talking about. So you need to make sure that you're collecting data. And also you need to know when to collect data. It's really important that you know when to collect them and also what to do with them and make sure that you're analyzing them correctly. Some of the organizations that we support would also benchmark against, the diversity efforts against other organizations of similar size within the same sector, within the same industry. So that's really important to do as well. So that data is what you then use to make, informed decisions. So you need to have the correct system and processes in place to be able to do this. You need the correct systems, you need the correct process to be able to, use this data effectively. Okay, so I've come to the end of my presentation. I hope you found it to be useful. If you have any questions, please email me. My information, my contact details are on the screen. It's tutu@sleekhr.co.uk, tutu@sleekhr.co.uk. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always there. So yes, if you have any questions, about what I've just discussed, or if you have any questions generally about diversity, equity, and inclusion, or even HR consulting within your organization, please feel free to get in touch with me, and I will be happy to support you with that. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope to hear from you soon, and I hope that you found this to be useful. Thank you. Speak to you soon. Bye.